Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Sanchez, and I am one of the co-founders and the CTO for Kinto, the safety first L2 for finance. I am extremely excited to be here at ETHOnline 2024 and have the opportunity to have wonderful hackers like yourself creating great applications for Kinto. In this short webinar, I am going to tell you everything that you need to know about Kinto, about our SDKs, about our APIs, and of course, how to be successful and getting those $10,000 worth of prizes. Without further ado, let's go. I know, there are so many projects, and now you have to decide exactly where are you going to be spending some time as part of the ETHOnline Global 2024 Hackathon. Well, let me give you a quick overview on why you should decide to develop on Kinto. Look, Kinto is the safest L2 in the ecosystem, but we are still very much EVM compatible. So everything that you know about the smart contracts will still apply exactly the same on our chain. However, in Kinto, every single user and every single developer is either KYC'd or KYB, which allow us to leave all the bad actors outside of the chain. I know what you are thinking, KYC, oh my God, my allergies. Well, do not go anywhere yet. Kinto does this in an extremely privacy-preserving way. We call it user-owned KYC, and I will give you all the details as part of this webinar. However, even though no information is stored on chains out of that KYC and KYB, there are 3 flags that you can very easily read for a status, jurisdiction, and sanctions in one line of code. At the same time, Kinto is the first chain enforcing account extraction at the chain level. This means that every single user and developer has a Kinto smart contract wallet that happens to be a multi-sig by default. Every single transaction on Kinto is going to be an encoded user operation that will go through our entry point. So if you have always wanted to learn a little bit more about the smart contracts, about the future of EIP 4337 and account extraction, Kinto is the perfect place to experiment because there is literally no other way to transact. I know that can be kind of scary, right? Multi-sig and this smart contract aspect going directly through the entry point. How does all of that work? Well, do not worry, because thanks to our Kinto Wallet SDK that I will be covering as well, you are going to be able to interact with that very easy multi-sig and a smart contract wallet system directly from your web application. And we have a React example that will give you all of the details about that. Final point. For both users and developer, the UX of Kinto is extremely easy and streamlined. We use turnkey passkey signers, so your face or your fingerprint can become a signer in that smart contract wallet and literally the key to your on-chain experience. If all of that doesn't give you the, oh my God, I really need to develop on Kinto feeling, well, I have something else for you. And it's $10,000 worth of reasons. If you happen to be the best application overall on Kinto, you will get $5,000. This application will have everything. A little bit of a Kinto Smart Contract API, a little bit of the Kinto Wallet SDK that I just mentioned, and will do in a perfectly executed and designed application. This team is probably ready to put this project out there and have it, receive thousands of users from the Kinto ecosystem. It's okay if you only want to take a look at the Smart Contract API for the best interactions with the Kinto ID, the Kinto Wallet Factory, the KYC Viewer, and many other of our smart contracts that allow you to get an insight on all of these features that I mentioned about Kinto. The first place will get $1,500 and the second place, $1,000. You don't want to touch the smart contract APIs, but you have a great idea for a web application protocol, the next big financial application on the chain. Well, the Kinto Wallet SDK track is exactly for you. The best Kinto Wallet SDK application will get $1,500. Second best will get $1,000. So a total of 5 prizes for 5 different teams will be given as part of this hackathon. Now that I convinced you, let's talk a little bit more about Kinto. All right, so what is Kinto? Well, Kinto is the first L2 on the Arbitrum Nitro stack settling on Ethereum mainnet. We like to say that we are what Base is to Optimism, Kinto is to Arbitrum, in the sense that even though the Nitro stack was designed originally to build orbits, L3s that were settling on Arbitrum, we actually run parallel to Arbitrum 1 and Arbitrum Nova, and we settle on mainnet. Our mission at Kinto is extremely easy to explain, very hard to achieve. We are here to create a safe space, a lasting piece of the ecosystem for developers, DeFi and TradFi to engage on. And we do so by focusing on two aspects. The security, because nothing matters if you're going to be scammed or robbed out of your hard-earned money. And most importantly, almost usability. We want for people to forget that they are even using blockchain technology. For that, we have focused on having an extremely streamlined onboarding process, an extremely easy to understand signature process using your face or your fingerprint through passkeys and turnkey. If you look at how the interaction works, signing with that multi-sig that is extremely secure, but also extremely easy, becomes a core part of how Kinto interacts. Not only that, but for developers, we are putting out there a number of different ways to interact with the chain. So even though we are still enforcing that account extraction, you in the DevX side of the chain are able to operate like you would on any EVM chain. So security and usability for both developers and users alike. Kinto is designed for developers, and it does not matter if you are veteran or just starting. We are still very much permissionless and decentralized. You can start your KYB and KYC process right now, go through it, and start developing without any interaction from any centralized environment. Kinto, as I mentioned before, it's fully EVM compatible. Everything that you know about a smart contract development, about EVM chains, applies to Kinto. And when you develop on Kinto, you are getting that safe environment that I mentioned before. You are going to get free KYC and AML, free fraud monitoring, free hack monitoring, free KYT, and you're going to be able to access to all of that information thanks to the Kinto ID API and others that would allow you to, while preserving the privacy of the users, get access to this critical information to make compliant applications. There are a few differences that are worth mentioning that separate Kinto from other L2s. Difference number one, EOAs are actually disabled on Kinto. That is true for every single user. However, you will see that for developers, we have a special treat for you, so you can still use EOAs to interact and manage your contracts. But by default, everything has to go through number two, account extraction. Every single user requires a smart contract wallet and send their transactions as encoded user operations to our 4337 compatible entry point. Number three, all users need a valid Kinto ID soulbound NFT. As part of the onboarding process, when you create your wallet, you get also this Kinto ID. It's our passport of the chain. And the Kinto ID will allow us to know if that account, that wallet has gone through the KYC process, and more importantly, if that Kinto ID is actually valid, meaning that you are not engaged in money laundering or a fraud or a hack, God forbid, since you actually got that wallet created. This Kinto ID is updated daily and it expires daily, actually. So unless the green light is re-given to every single Kinto ID on the network, bad actors cannot interact with the chain. Fourth and last one, the KYC and the compliance rules are actually enforced at the Geth level. That means that if you try to send send transactions, send any type of interaction into the chain, we are not only checking at the smart contract level, we are also enforcing those with modification at the Geth level that guarantee that those operations are reverted in case that your Kinto ID is not valid, etc. All right, so let's now take a look at how everything works from a user perspective. So the first time that you arrive into Kinto, you're going to have to select, or an application that uses Kinto, you're going to have to select a KYC provider, Synapse, Plaid, or OnFido. This is really important because, again, we want to be credibly neutral, and maybe you have a preference on jurisdiction. Maybe you have already used these KYC or KYB provider as part of your bank or your centralized exchange, and you trust them already with your data. This will, by the way, expedite the process for obvious reasons. Once that the user has gone through that KYC or that KYB process, that KYC or KYB provider will store and check that personal information. This is really important. The personal information will never leave that KYC or KYB provider without the user signing that information to those compliant applications that require to have or store that information for either a moment in time or for long time storage. After a successful KYC or KYB process has been completed, our Kinto identity node receives a callback. This callback is triggered without any PII that will be stored on the network at all. However, once that we know that the user is okay to enter Kinto, we will prompt them to create, thanks to our partnership with Turnkey, a passkey. A passkey is essentially an initial signer for the Kinto wallet that is triggered to your biometrics or to your devices in some way. Again, could be that is your face on your phone, your fingerprint on your laptop, or that you are storing a passkey tied to your device in a cloud service of some sort. Passkeys are here to stay. They are going to substitute for completely user and passwords, and Kinto is at the forefront of the adoption of passkeys thanks to that Turkey agreement that I mentioned. Finally, once that you have created that original signer, right, it's essentially an EOA that has only one purpose, which is signing what? Signing the Kinto wallet transactions, but is that first original signer tied to your biometrics that will receive the soul-bound NFT that is the Kinto ID. Finally, once that you have that original signer 0 of your wallet, that Kinto ID soul-bound NFT that indicates that you have passed your KYC and that has some information like the jurisdiction and your sanctions status, you are now able to create your Kinto Smart account that is deployed automatically by the chain. The user will be also asked to add further signers like your hardware wallet or your MetaMask as part of that signing structure with up to 3 signers per Kinto Smart account. So let's talk a little bit about the wallet before we go any further. This wallet is a smart account wallet compliant with EIP 4337, is multi-sig by default, and it will require at least one signature, that signature 0 that I mentioned before, or depending on the policy, you have 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 2, 3 out of 3, depending on what are you choosing as part of your configuration and of your policy. And this wallet is what kind of goes together with the KYC, KYB system, the AML, the frost checking, and the compliance checks. Thanks to our contracts, the Kinto ID and the KYC viewer that I will cover later on, you will be able to access all of that compliant information. However, not to the PII. That will require a third API that we will release later in the year. This memory wallet has these passkey-based signatures, but not only, as I mentioned before, you can add any type of wallet, your Ravi wallet, your Coinbase wallet, your, anything you want, your hardware wallet, of course, as part of those signatures. But the first signer is always a very easy to use, very easy to log in, very easy to interact with, but very safe passkey-based signature. You have as well something that is quite amazing, and is you no longer need to worry about storing your 24 words, and if you have a boat accident or your dog decides to eat your 24 words, you have lost your funds forever. Because you have that KYC done in the Kinto ecosystem, you can re-KYC or re-KYB in a 7-day long safe process to recover that wallet. And finally, once more, that easy and straightforward UX that we were mentioning at the beginning. I invite you all, in fact, if you are participating in the hackathon, you are either on the process of doing onboarding or you just completed it probably. All right, let's go directly to the developer guide. So everything that I'm covering in this webinar is also on written form on our online documentation. So you can go right now to docs.kinto.xyz, and every single step that I'm going to follow for both the smart contracts API, the Kinto wallet SDK, and how to use the developer portal for Kinto, it's all there step by step with plenty of images. So if you prefer that format, feel free to pause the video right now and jump onto the website. By now, you probably have already your KYC or your KYB, and you have created a Kinto wallet. If that is not the case, that is absolutely all right. You can go to engen.kinto.xyz/onboarding and go through that Kinto KYC process in about 5 or 10 minutes. It won't take any longer. Once that you have that Kinto wallet ready, come back here and visit engen.kinto.xyz developers. The first thing that you will do when you try to set up your development account is to pick a developer EOA. This deployer address is essentially a way to bypass the creation of contracts through user operations. We don't want you to have to encode the creation of a contract through a user operation and send it to the entry point. We want you to have the regular EVM experience, and for that, just copy and paste the address that you want to use. You obviously have that private key somewhere else, but copy the public address, click on Set Deployer Account, sign the transaction with one or more signers, depending on your wallet configuration, and if everything goes smoothly, you will be able to see the transaction setting your deployer EOA, and that will give you access to the developer portal. The developer portal will show you your wallet, of course, your deployer address that you will be able to change by clicking on the Change Deployer button, and we also funded directly from your Kinto wallet that Set Deployer EOA that you just registered. Of course, if you run out of funds on that deployer EOA, you can continuously fund it through the Fund Deployer button, and that will take either Ethereum or wrapped Ethereum directly from your wallet and use it in order to fund this EOA that you probably will use to develop contracts, to deploy contracts, to manage some of the functions internally for operations of those contracts. Obviously, in order to do any of these, you will require some Ethereum or some wrap Ethereum on your wallet, and you can do so by following the guide that is also on our documentation for regular deposits as any other user would. You will also see in the developer portal the list of your application. You see here that I have created my first application, Victor's Test Counter. However, for you, this will be empty, obviously, and you will have to click on Create a New App. I will be going into the details on how to create an application in a second. However, I think it's worth it to talk a little bit about what are Kinto applications and how do they work, why do they exist. So very quickly, Kinto apps are ERC 721s, NFTs, that contain essentially all the app metadata required for your applications to function and to be identified in the Kinto network. These NFTs, the Kinto apps, are owned by Kinto Wallet. So basically, your Kinto wallet, your personal Kinto wallet, will be the owner of one or more applications that you develop during this hackathon and hopefully for years to come. This application and its full control actually can be transferred to any other Kinto wallet, and of course can be burned if that application is no longer in use. The application includes information like the name of the application, and if the application has more than one contract, actually you can list all of those contracts, and you have to list as part of this creation process all of the contracts that are part of the application. And it also includes something extremely important, that is a list of EOAs that can directly access the application without using that enforced account extraction. This is very useful for setup, for configuration, and for maintenance operation of your contracts and applications. Last but not least, the sponsor paymaster policy information also goes here. As part of EIP 4337, account extraction, we are able to offer to the final users a gasless experience. So essentially, you charge your users however you please, but they don't pay for gas. You do through the developer portal. And in fact, we will see later how to top up these contracts in order for you to be able to pay for your users' gas. This way, you can take, again, a fee out of the users, but they don't have to worry about if they have or not enough gas in the right currency to make those transactions happen. So for all of these reasons, we are kind of creating this concept of the Kinto app, which is just a collection of contracts, a collection of EOAs that can access, and the sponsor paymaster policies. The first thing that you want to make sure that you do is in your env file somewhere, make sure that you have the Kinto RPC URL, rpc.kinto-rpc.com, and of course the private key of the deployer EOA that you set up in the previous step. Once that you do this, you can pick any contract. In this case, I'm picking the counter contract out of our main repo, but any contract would do, and just deploy it as you would do absolutely anywhere else. For create, I'm using Foundry in this case, and deploy that contract. Once that you get that address of this first contract deployed on Kinto. By the way, if you happen to try this without having set up as deployer EOA, you will get an error telling that EOAs cannot interact directly into Kinto or cannot deploy contracts on Kinto. This is why you have to set it up as a deployer EOA. Long story short, pick up your counter address and let's go back to the developer portal. When you click on new application, you will see this screen where you're going to be able to put the name of your application, and you will be asked to have the main contract address. This is either the first one or the most important contract of your application. In our case, our first application will only have one contract, so we will put our counter address directly where you have this kind of placeholder, the 0x your counter address. We will leave empty the list of app contracts. However, we want to add directly an EOA that can directly call that contract until we have other ways for users to do user operations instead of that. So basically, in here, you can list the EOAs that you require for management of your application to access directly into this. Because remember, all other users will do so through their Kinto wallets and user operations. On the right side of this screen, you can see the app sponsorship limits. In here, you will be able to set up essentially two things. Rate limits. This is how many transactions can a specific address be done over time. So in here we have that for every 60 seconds, every user can make 10 requests. This could be a lot or not enough for your use case. For now, I recommend you that you leave it as is. Finally, you can also decide how much gas they can spend given a number of seconds. So in this case, for 24 hours, we don't want them to spend more than 0.01 ETH per each one of those wallets that are going to be interacting with your contract. This is really important that you set up accordingly to the use case that you expect from your users. For this sample application, you are absolutely fine leaving this with the default value. Once that you click on Create App, now you will have this new line in here, and you can enter at any time by clicking on the name of the application and edit the contracts or the EOAs that you are using. But most importantly, you will be able as well to top the paymaster. This is the last button on the right on the sponsor balance. I recommend that you add a little bit of that Ethereum that you had on the Founder EOA or on your wallet. Make sure to top up the paymaster so you can start paying for transactions of users. In this case, the first user of your application is going to be you. We have created an application. Now we need a way to interact with it. And the best way, and probably the first way that you are going to want to do this, is through the Kinto Web Wallet SDK. For that, I want to talk a little bit about this SDK, and then we will see an example on how it's used directly on our React sample. The Kinto Wallet API is just an npm package, so you can add it to your project directly with npm install kinto-web.sdk. If you want to import this functionality, you are gonna import the function create Kinto SDK from the Kinto Web SDK package, and you're gonna take the main address. Remember, when we created in the developer portal, we were asked to select the main contract address. In this case, we only had one because it's just a counter, but if you had more than one, you will need to have the main address as the main input for the create Kinto SDK app address and get that Kinto SDK object. Once that we have that Kinto SDK object, the next thing that you want to do is call to the connect function. The connect function will return a promise, and once that you have that promise, it will give you the account information, and we will cover a little bit on what that account information is later on. And of course, you can see the documentation online to see all of the fields that are included in this account information. If anything happens during this process of connection, you will get an error with details of that issue. Sending transactions with the Kinto Wallet SDK couldn't be easier. What you're going to do is you're going to have your recipient address. In this case, it's also going to be the counter. You're going to have the value that you want to send with that operation. Most operations probably will have a 0 unless you are transferring any type of ETH, right, as part of that. And of course, you will have the data. In this case, if you're calling, let's say, the increment function of a counter, you would do directly on your console, right? Forge cast call data of the increment function and get that hexadecimal code that you need for whatever comes in here. You will see that these transactions is an array, because one of the many advantages of user operations and of interacting with the entry point through account abstraction is that you can send more than one user operation as part of that. So once that you have created all of your transactions, all of your user operations that are part of your transaction, you can call to Kinto SDK dot send transaction, and you will get either a hash or an error. Sometimes it may be that your user has not yet created a Kinto wallet. If that is the case, you will be able to prompt them with a pop-up to create a new account thanks to Kinto SDK create new wallet. Let's take a look at the React SDK example. This example uses the Web Wallet SDK, and it's probably the best template for you to get started with your hackathon project. What you want to do first is clone your repository that is going to be in React SDK example. The links to these are in these slides, and of course as well on the description of this video. Enter the folder with CD React SDK example, and make sure to install all the dependencies with yarn install. The next thing that you're going to need is to make sure that HTTPS and an SSL certificate work properly in your local environment. For that, you want to install mkcert. It's very easy if you do so in Mac with brew install. If you are on a Linux distribution, you probably want to do something like sudo apt-get, but make sure to do the right choice for your operative system. mkcert install and mkcert devkinto.xyz with the parameters that you see on the screen will create two files, a .pm and a -key.pm, both for the public and the private part of your SSL certificate. Once you have those two, you will need to make sure that they are properly referred to in the package.json. I will cover that in a second. Make sure as well that you edit your etc host with this line, basically mapping your localhost IP to dev.kinto.xyz, and click on yarn start. As I mentioned, the process of creating the certificate will create those two files. Go to your package.json, find the line with the scripts start, and make sure that the PM and the -key PM are properly referred to in the SSL cert file and on the key file fields. Last but not least, go to your app.tsx and make sure that your counter address is both your main contract and of course the counter address in those two lines, 40 and 41. Once more, if your application has more than one contract, this obviously could be different. For this example, this is exactly the same address. If everything went all right, now you go to dev.kinto.xyz on port 3001, you will be able to see the address of the application that you're about to connect with, and you will be able to click on login sign up. Once that you login sign up, you will go through the login process, the regular normal login for users at kinto.xyz, and you will be able to see now the app, the wallet that you have connected, and the app key. The app key probably will be empty on your first attempt. That is because it hasn't been set up yet, and I have to introduce to you the last concept that is important on Kinto App's development. Whenever you are connecting to an application or you want to interact with an application, your Kinto wallet has the ability and the need to whitelist those applications, especially the first time that you are interacting with them. You can whitelist them in two ways, either whitelist them in general, and then any one signer or any one policy of signers can interact with that wallet, with that application through the wallet, sorry, or you can select one signer that is enough for you to interact with that application. In this case, when you click increase counter for the first time, you will be able to select an app key signer, and basically I recommend you that you do this with your turnkey signer, so basically with your face or with your fingerprint, and you can easily test locally as you go on parts on that. So click on increase counter. Once more, you will be prompted to confirm that transaction. It may be that also you select the app key for this application. And finally, you will be able to send that transaction and see your counter increment. We will see a little bit more detail about whitelisting and whitelisting with an app key when we go directly into the smart contract API, which is exactly the next section. Let's take a look now at the Kinto smart contract. First of all, it's worth remembering that if you go to docs.kinto.xyz, we have our smart contract reference. Here we will point you to two different repositories, the Kinto core repo and the account extraction repo. In the Kinto core repository, you will find every contract, every test, every helper, and even every migration that we have ever applied to the chain. There is a lot to learn from this code. The construction code contains a fork of EIP 4337 and a very small modification into the entry point that allow it to be consistent with our Kinto ID requirements. For the hackathon, probably you don't need this account extraction repository. If you take a look as well at the list of contracts, the Kinto ID, the wallet factory, the wallet, the sponsor paymaster, they include a ton of information on how this contract work and even some tips on how to use them to the best of your abilities. I recommend that you read the Kinto ID that includes things like the flag system and the trade system. Basically, jurisdictions are stored as a trade with the ISO flag of your country. Is KYC or is sanction safe, are flags that you can read directly, Boolean flags that you can read directly with the Kinto ID or the KYC viewer. I recommend that you use like KYC viewer. Talking about the KYC viewer, a good place to start looking into it is our blog explorer. Take full advantage of explorer.kinto.xyz, grab from our documentation the address of our KYC viewer, and go and check your own wallet. Are you an individual or a company? Are you KYC or not? What is your country flag? Do you have this or that trade? You can very easily, with a few clicks from the Block Explorer, get a lot of information and get familiar with plenty of this content. But the really important thing is, how do we send user operations directly with code? So let's take a look at that. The first thing that you want to do is make sure that you create a Kinto wallet. In this case, we're going to use the interface, iKinto wallet. I'm taking Kinto wallet address from a variable or from an environment file. And once that I have that, I will also get the nonce, the number of the operation that will be next for my wallet. I will create an array of private keys. I will create an array of user operation, an array of targets that I want to whitelist. Remember that kind of prior operation that we need to execute on the wallet itself. And the other thing that I will do is create an array of flags telling which contracts do I want to essentially whitelist. So I have targets containing the counter and flags containing one Boolean on that array that says true. I'm going to create then my first user operation. In order, I will call this helper, create user operation, and I will go and make sure that I get the chain ID, that I get the Kinto wallet, that is the source of this user operation. The next one is also my Kinto wallet, because in this case, the whitelist app method is part of the wallet itself. So it's the wallet sending a method against the wallet itself. In this case, the value of the operation is 0, nothing is being transmitted, the nonce and the private keys, and finally, I am gonna encode with signature the whitelist app and those two arrays, the addresses and the booleans for those flags. Finally, I need to indicate the paymaster. Thanks to the helpers that are on this repository, you can do directly at address paymaster and it will recognize. Finally, I want to increment the counter now that I have whitelisted right in that first operation. Again, one of the beauty of account extraction, I am sending several user operations inside the same transaction. So my user ops 1, right, in that array, is going to be same thing. Look that in this case, the reference, right, we are going against the counter. So obviously is the 2 is the Kinto wallet. Sorry, the from is the Kinto wallet. The 2 is the counter. Look that I've also increased the nonce, right? I use nonce in the first operation, nonce plus 1 in the second operation. And in this case, I am, of course, encoding with signature the increment function. I'm going to prepare the broadcast. And finally, I'm going to call the entry point.handleOps with this array of user operations. And of course, the wallet signer key, which is sending that to the handleOps. So as you see, interacting and sending user operations require a little bit of code, but once that you have done one, all of them are going to be exactly the same. Extremely easy to do. You have probably realized by now that getting started on Kinto is extremely easy. However, if you want to go into true depth on some of these smart contracts, you will require the repositories and the documentation links that I have been mentioning all during this webinar. Make sure that you look at docs.kinto.xyz. Make sure that if you want to get started quickly, you follow our development setup guide as part of those documentations. Download our repositories and take a look. Kinto Core, Kinto Web SDK, very especially the React SDK example that will put you there and almost ready to get started with your own application. As I mentioned before, it's the perfect template for your hackathon project. Another thing that I would recommend you is that you come and join our Discord, both for the hackathon and long after that, me and a lot of developers that are building con Kinto share ideas for projects, answer questions. So if you have a question, please come. We are there to help you. Finally, we take developers extremely seriously at Kinto. We know that it doesn't matter how safe, how usable, or how beautiful our design in the website is. The reality is that the future of the network is in your hands. And whatever is going to be the most exciting thing on Kinto hasn't been built yet. And it could be that you are the one that are going to make it happen. Look, we joke at Kinto that it literally takes a village to create an L2. And it is absolutely true. There are so many moving pieces behind the scenes, from our wonderful partners at Opchain Labs and the Arbitrum Foundation that are the core of our stack. Infrastructure partners like Netlify, Caldera for our RAS, Fauna for our DB on the more Web2 stuff, RPC nodes that cover the world globally, Nodis, Anchor, QuickNode, the security aspect of it, Hypernative, chain analysis, Iron Blocks as the firewall, KYC, KYB, and AML providers that are required for many of these compliant use cases that you probably want to build as well on Kinto. Data availabilities, decentralized sequencers, Block Scout for the explorers, bridging with socket and chain abstraction, the bundler with Pimlico, on-ramp directly through Coinbase, and things like turnkey or dynamic for our wallet configurations, on-chain intelligence with my Merlin API. The reality is that all of that is there for you, for the developer to build the next big thing. Hope that you earn all of those prizes that I announced at the beginning. Hope that you build something memorable. But most of all, I truly hope that you enjoy ETHOnline 2024. Thank you for your time and see you soon.